How's it going, everybody? I'm Sam Lee, reading for writer Jaydyn Spisak, and welcome to Gaming Instincts. With games as a service and looter shooters coming to dominate the gaming industry, it takes something truly special to stand tall above industry giants like Destiny. However, it is looking like People Can Fly's Outriders may be able to rise to the occasion. Outriders presents a rather interesting narrative, fluid combat, and a deep skill tree that will keep looter shooter fans engaged for weeks to come. Though, most games aren't perfect and have some kind of downside, and Outriders is no exception. Weighed down as it is by repetitive missions, bland environments, and archetypal characters, not everything is right with the design of Outriders. Today, we'll talk about both. The 5 best and worst parts about Outriders. Let's get started on a positive note. Number 5. Engaging narrative. The first few minutes of the demo surprisingly ooze lore and history. The setup is that humanity fled a dying Earth and have been searching for a new home. Unfortunately, grand quests like this don't always go to plan. Once landing on the promising world of Enoch, all hell broke loose, and the titular Outriders were forced into a 30-year-long cryosleep. The player's character awakens to find Enoch in complete chaos, with multiple factions fighting one another and the planet tearing itself apart. Thus, it falls to the player to ascertain what happened in that 30-year period and make sense of their newly emerged powers. The narrative is conveyed through some gorgeous cutscenes with stellar character models and solid voice work. Each mission fleshes out the time between the prologue and the first act, at a steady pace that strikes an admirable balance of action and story. Outriders lore also gets just as much attention as the main and side quests do. It is surprising to see just how much People Can Fly added, as most of the lore bits have to be sought out in the form of collectibles. Each collectible adds to the world and presents further value for those players trying to get the most out of exploring Enoch. Number 4. Combat. At first glance, Outriders presents itself as just an average cover-based third-person shooter, but it turns out to be a little deeper than that. Each gun offers a different way to play, pairing well with the 4 separate character classes for a fun and thoughtful gameplay loop. Once players complete the prologue, they are given a choice between 4 classes: Trickster, Pyromancer, Devastator, and Technomancer. Each class has distinct strengths and weaknesses, and the player is locked into whichever class they have chosen for their character. Trickster is meant to get the player as close and personal with their enemy as possible, carrying with it some incredible skills to boot. When first becoming a Trickster, the player is presented with the ability that allows him to strike enemies with a sword made of the very fabric of time, aging said foes to death. Pairing this with the power to teleport behind enemies and take them out from behind made combat feel exhilarating. When in danger, Tricksters are also able to slow down time, not only allowing for a short moment to catch their breath, but also offering some spectacular visuals like enemies' gunfire slowing to a crawl. Moving on to the Pyromancer, this class feels a bit lackluster, but it can be some good fun. If you enjoy area of effect and mid-range combat, then this class is a perfect choice. With the ability to throw up firewalls and immobilize enemies, this class will excel in a team setting. Devastator is the tank class. If you want to inflict a great deal of damage without suffering much yourself, this class should be your focus. The Gravity Leap ability lets players leap across an area and slam down on multiple foes, with the entire maneuver being both gratifying to perform and gorgeous to witness. Paired with the Trickster's time-slowing powers, this can make for quite the powerful combo. The Technomancer is for all the support players out there, but if you plan on soloing Outriders, you'll be happy to know that Technomancers can still hold their own. While being the only class with team healing abilities, players are encouraged to fight from a distance by setting up turrets and freezing enemies. With a team of 4 friends, each using a separate class, players should be able to discover some rather unorthodox combos to turn the tide in battle and deliver a feeling of satisfaction often missing from these sort of games. Number 3. Equip and dismantle in field. One of the writer's personal biggest issues with the games as a service design model is the player has to slog through menus after picking up new gear. Anthem and the vanilla version of Destiny were among the worst offenders when it came to this problem, slowing the action to a crawl and making inventory management more tedious than exciting. Outriders fixes this issue by allowing players to take one glance at the new gear and determine if it's worth their while. Once equipment is dropped, players will find a pop-up menu listing the item's various statistics, such as its defense or attack capabilities. From there, they can quickly decide whether they want to pick up the item, equip it, or scrap it outright for currency to spend in the shops. This method goes a long way towards speeding up the moment-to-moment gameplay and keeping people engaged. Number 2. World Tier. As the player progresses through missions, they obtain world experience that serves to level up the world, making enemies harder but also drop better gear. Another great inclusion to the world tier is the ability to lower it whenever it seems that things may be a bit too tough on the player. This adjustable feature is perfect for players seeking a challenge or players who want to take it easy. And at number 1, loot. Similar to any given looter shooter, the primary way to obtain gear in Outriders is to fight through a gauntlet of enemies during missions. As each mission can be replayed at one's discretion, it's recommended to play on a higher world tier than before in order to obtain loot of increasing quality. Every gun, helmet, coat, and pair of pants attained were all obvious and immediate in their visual differences, to say nothing of the impact made on players' stats. Outriders does a great job in rewarding players with useful gear that's also interesting on an aesthetic level. Farming doesn't feel like a chore thanks to their great combat loop and fair delivery of loot drops that never disappointed. Now, with the pros out of the way, it's time to move to the less good things about Outriders. Number 5. Lack of mission variety. With the 5 or so hours the writer spent with Outriders, he had yet to encounter a single mission that deviates from the standard objective of kill a bunch of enemies. The mission repetitiveness and lack of variety becomes more wholly apparent when starting out a new character. Once the full game releases, hopefully there'll be more missions to then just go to a place, take out some enemies, rinse, and repeat. Number 4. Lackluster environments. Pretty as Outriders is with its particle effects, gorgeous lighting storms, and well-detailed character models, the environments themselves feel rather bland. When the character first arrives on Enoch, they are greeted with lush forests teeming with wildlife. Once past the prologue, it becomes clear that players are trapped in a gray world ripped straight from the drab military shooters of the 2010s. Not very pleasing to the eyes, to say the least. Number 3. World separation. Outriders feels behind the times when it comes to the matter of world design. Having each individual mission and side quest locked behind separate doors and areas didn't encourage the writer to go out of his way to explore once he was out of the mission area. It's rather reminiscent of older Monster Hunter games, where each time the player left an area, they were greeted with load screens. Thankfully, the loading didn't affect the gameplay, but it did mess up the pacing. Who likes looking at boring, static image loading screens? You know what, don't raise your hands, we know you don't. Number 2. Archetypal characters. It's strange that Outriders' world building feels as though it had so much love and thought put into it, yet the characters come across as something of an afterthought. The player character doesn't have much of a personality to them, while every secondary character just functions to serve the story and spout dialogue at the audience. The voice acting was well done, but won't leave any lasting impressions. For those looking for rich character stories and character arcs, you should feel a bit concerned here. And finally, at the top of the worst part of the Outriders demo, potential falling out. The writer's final issue with Outriders is that he can see many people falling off not long after trying this demo. Though the combat is fun and the details of the world seem interesting, the writer hopes that people stick around afterwards to experience the full story. After his time experimenting with each class, he found himself wanting to move on to something different, feeling as though time might be better spent elsewhere. That's not to say there is a lack of content, but there are the dual problems of repetitive mission structure and not much diversity in the enemies until reaching the bosses. Plus, with each character class not adding much to the narrative side of the game, Outriders may be best experienced with 3 other players. It is our hope that Outriders is able to get past the initial rocky start that plagues the launch of most looter shooters and get long-term support from the developers and fans alike. Overall, the writer had a blast with Outriders and is looking forward to playing more once the full game launches on April 30th. This has been Gaming Instincts. The full article is linked in the description below, and if you want to check out other awesome articles, head on over to our website at gaminginstincts.com. Make sure to subscribe to our newsletter and YouTube channel to stay up to date on all that gaming goodness. So tell us guys, what are your experiences with the Outriders demo? Did you like it? Or what are some things that you had issues with? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. This has been Sam Lee, and we'll catch you next time.